Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It's 12 o'clock, and I'm super, super excited to announce my next live guest, the musical athlete. I am so thrilled to have this amazing couple with us today. The information in this live is going to be incredible. There's going to be so much value for your singing, not just for the new year, but forever. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. So happy to see all of you. Hi, everyone. Hi, 360 of Opera. I'm so thrilled to have the musical athlete with us today. So let's get them on. Here we Here we go. Instagram's always fun when it comes to adding someone to the live. So let's see what we can get done here. It's working. It's working. There we are. Hi, Chris.
All right.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Jen. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on live with me today. Everyone's very excited. I've gotten lots and lots of questions.
Super
Someone
excited.
said this is an epic collaboration. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. So thank
Love
you
it.
so much for being here with me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for so much. Hi,
Hey,
Steph. How are you,
Hi,
sweetheart?
Jen.
How
I'm great.
are
I'm working here
you?
behind the scenes, so if you
Come
need
in
anything,
the
she's right
scenes.
here.
Join us in
I'm
the
in the
scenes. We
scenes.
want
I'm
you
in the
here.
scenes. Awesome. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so thrilled to have Chris of the Musical Athlete with me today. As you guys know, I am a humongous believer that we are vocal athletes. We are musical athletes, and we need to care for our bodies as our entire instrument. So I really thought it was important today to get some expert advice for you guys, and that's why Chris is here. So I would first love to start, Chris, with asking you about how you first got into working with singers and what your background is with strength and fitness and how you apply that to our bodies and vocal technique and how you help us.
It's a great question. It's a big question, but okay.
We have
So the
time,
way,
so answer away.
hey, here we go. Okay. So the way that I got into fitness was I have always like soccer is my first love. I played college soccer. It was my passion. Worked my whole life to, just obsessed with the game of soccer. Loved it. I ended up playing soccer at University of South Florida, D1 school.
Amazing.
You know, it was my dream. I worked my whole life to get there, and I played. You know, I got some playing time my freshman year. My sophomore year, I was slated to be a starter at right back, which is my position. And the last game of our preseason, it was in the 90th minute. I kind of hit a rough patch of grass and I tore my ACL. Okay, so
The
full
worst.
ACL tear. Yeah, it's horrible. And anyway, it's just one of those things where you go from being able to do anything that you want with your body to being able to do nothing, which was just it was a horrible experience in itself. But I remember the surgeon telling me that be prepared to not play again at this level, you know, and that at that time, that's like telling me that I can't breathe anymore, you know, because I had worked my whole life. I'd worked my whole life to get there, and it was just something that, like, you know, it was like my dream was over. So I was thinking, you know, why do anything at all? But I'm very stubborn, so I didn't accept that. And I found somebody like me. It was a strength and conditioning coach who was also a PT that does a lot of the biomechanical stuff that I do. And I found him and I hounded him to rehab me until he did. And really, he taught me more about my body in the course of my 9-month period of rehab. He rehabbed me. But I also interned with him, and I became a personal trainer during that time because, one, I had nothing else to do. And number two, you know, it's just the process of learning about because I'm somebody that wants to know why. You know,
Yeah,
I want to
me
know why
too.
things work. I want to know how to best prepare myself for things. Just as I'm sure many people on this call are, and you are, of course.
Absolutely.
And you know, it just I learned more about my body than in 9 months of my whole life. And so I remember I walked back onto my team early, a 9-month rehab, which in that I was slated for like 11 or 12 months. So that was in itself, you know, a big deal. But I remember the first time I played 90 minutes again, I just remember having so much confidence in my body and so much understanding of how I prepared, you know, like what I do when I started to feel this. Like in a lot of cases, when you have injuries, people will favor the other side, or they won't go into challenges the same way because they're not confident in what their body can do. But I was, and I was
Yeah.
actually in a lot of ways more confident. And I was stronger. And I remember when that 90 minutes was over, like I cried because it meant that much to me. Like
Yeah.
I got my scholarship back. And that changed my life. Like that's the reason that I do
Wow.
this now. So and then from there, I just actually have a master's degree in journalism, but I trained the whole time. I learned from the best people that I possibly could. And I ended up, working for about 2 years in journalism and realizing that I don't want to sit down for my life. So I ended up opening a gym back here in Tampa, where I'm from. And since then, I've worked with people like me that have had that experience as athletes that have, movement limitations, people that are post-surgery, things like that. I've worked with athletes from all major sports. And so fast forward to 2019 when I met Steph, and she can add to this part, but we met randomly at a Halloween party. Okay, fast forward about a month, and I'm watching her perform in church, and she's performing "Rejoice Greatly." Okay, and so she goes into her higher register, and I'm watching, because I'm weird, right? And I like to watch people move, and so I'm watching her body, and I'm watching her rib cage, and I'm watching her kind of go like this when she's going into her higher register, and so after the she's probably gonna slap me when I say this, but after the performance, she was like, "How'd I do?" And she wanted me to say like, "She's
Oh,
pretty,"
you're
and
amazing.
it was an amazing performance. And
Yeah.
I said, "You're pretty. It was an amazing performance, but why did you do that with your rib cage when you went into your high D?" And she was like, "Wait, what?" And
It was
so
really annoying.
and so it's like, and so my background as well as a musician is I'm a trumpet player. I was not a singer to this point. I take vocal lessons now, but the point is that early on when we started, I watched the body to see what the body does, because the body's a pressure system. And when, you don't necessarily have access to space to create a note, you're going to have to overtend. So you're going to have to move things around to find that space.
Yep.
And that's why you see people go like this, or a jaw shift to the
Hmm.
side, or a jaw
Hmm.
shift to back,
Yep.
because that's just the body moving to accommodate to create
Yep.
pressure. So we started working together during COVID, just because I was like, let me see if some of the things that I do with athletes work on you, because a lot of it is, based upon biomechanics and breathing and all of these things. And she ended up being able to access her high D with no problem. In fact, we found that she had access to a higher register than she thought initially. And
Amazing.
so it was one of those things where, then we're like, wow, let's just like create an Instagram and put some stuff out there. And so that, and within a few months we had clients from, all over the world. I think in part because like COVID was going on, and
And
everybody was just
everybody was
home.
on
But
Instagram. Yeah,
but
exactly.
but it was amazing because a couple singers that were my kind of like ride or die singers. I see Opera 360 on this call.
Yeah,
Eugenia
yeah,
is
yeah,
one of them.
Eugenia, yeah.
Yeah, and just learn, and you as well early on. Just learning from all of this experimentation, and doing all of these things, and learning how to best train around performances and training cycles. So by the time COVID was basically over for opera, like we were rolling, and we were working with singers all over the world. So
Love
it's been an
that.
amazing journey, and it's been something that I am I've learned about the body for my whole career, as far as how supports the airway and everything else. Now to connect that with the voice and kind of learn from all of you, it's been absolutely amazing. So I'm just, humble to be here,
Oh,
and,
I
very
love
excited to
that. I love that. I
continue
love
this
your
process. So,
story. I love how you and Steph met.
yeah.
And I love that you were like analyzing her performance. It's amazing.
Well,
My
and,
husband
and I
does the
love
same
that
thing.
she didn't, I love that she didn't dump me on the
Yeah.
spot too. That's great.
No,
So
she probably was
there you
like,
go.
say more, say more. My
Yeah.
husband does the same thing. I was in a coaching once in Zurich, and I was singing something high piano, and he was like, Jen, your jaw is shaking. And I was like, oh, no. So it's
Yeah.
a when you get that info from somebody that you love and somebody that you care about, it actually like registers, and you can
Yeah.
actually do something about it, which I love.
Yeah. Or I get
So
stuff.
I
So
mean, I have to tell you from
yeah.
the very beginning, I loved your Instagram account. I loved everything that you were putting out, the exercises, the information. Your information has informed my teaching, has informed, what I do with my students. And the importance of having a strong body, as you said, and having confidence in your
Absolutely.
body, that your body
Absolutely.
is going to be there for you. And I
Absolutely.
use
Yes.
this with singers all the time. When you're sick, if you can't rely on that body, if you can't say, I know how to do this, right? And I can trust that my body's going to make this happen, you have to cancel all the time. And you can sing
Mhm.
through a cold as long as it's not on your chords, as long as your body is functioning at the optimum level that it can, and your muscles are working for you, and your vocal tract is free and all of those things. Excuse me, you can sing through pretty much anything as long as it's not on the chords. So even at the base level of being able to sing all the time, all of this information is so incredibly valuable. So obviously, we both feel like singers, and the job of a singer is basically like being an athlete. Um,
Absolutely.
I,
It is.
I, prepare for my performances like a football player would prepare for a
I know
big
you do.
game.
Yes.
I make sure my body is in optimal condition. I make sure my voice is in optimal condition. I eat, foods that are going to fuel me,
Mhm.
nothing that's going to inflame. We steam, we nebulize, we sinus rinse, we do all of these things. And it basically is like being a football player preparing for a big game, because you are
Absolutely.
using your entire body. And
You
I
are
warm
100%.
up and cool down and, eat bananas and protein bars during the show and all of that. So I want to know from you, what does it mean to you to be a musical athlete or a singing athlete? What does that mean to you?
And I think you said it really well. I think being a prepared performer, okay, and I think that means taking into account all aspects of performance. And when I came into this world, I think singers in large part are amazing at doing the things that you talk about, nebulizers, preparing their voice, vocal warm-ups, things of this nature. And what we bring to the table, and what we have been advocates of from the very beginning, is a pre-vocal warm-up. Okay, a
Mm-hmm.
couple breathing drills to optimize and cultivate cylindrical breathing. Okay, because we think about everything up here, but in reality, this is the power source. This apparatus powers everything and supports the airway. So becoming a ninja and mastering the ability and restoring the ability of your ribs to move and your pelvic floor to move to support your airway night after night, I think is an absolute game changer. And I mean, if I can give one recommendation for anybody just right off the bat, it is that just 3 to 4 some breathing drills to help to optimize the movement of your rib cage and your pelvis so they can stack atop one another as you sing, and so they can expand and compress. Like, that is number one. And then beyond,
Absolutely.
yeah, and then beyond that, as you say, being from my world, when I think about the physical side of things, I'm thinking of, like I said, pre-vocal warm-up, post-vocal cool-down, relaxed movement and relaxed breathing after singing to start that parasympathetic recovery process. I'm thinking like a couple recovery days a week where you're doing aerobic activity while breathing through your nose to re-expand everything, because singing is inherently compressive. So, as you go through a run of several shows a week, or I've worked with people up to 16 shows a week, and
Yeah.
I mean, that is just going to squeeze all the air
Yeah.
out of you,
Yeah.
so doing activities where, you're hydrating, you're eating, as you say, but, you're doing your foam rolling, you're doing your recovery work, all the things that you do already. It's
Foam
amazing,
rolling.
yeah. And,
So can
and
I
you,
get some hearts for the foam roller, guys? We love the foam
amen.
roller on
Amen.
the roll one.
Everybody's like, thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. It
Foam
hurts
roller
sometimes.
is the best. Even though it
It
is
is.
not the best while you're doing it, gosh, it's the best when
Yeah,
you stand up
it
and you're
is.
like,
It's
oh.
great. No, it's over the course of over the course of a season, you can't beat it. It's
I love
amazing.
it.
So yeah.
So let's talk about actually training our bodies and
Mhm.
getting ourselves in shape for the job that we have to do. It's the beginning of the year, it's 2025, and we know that a lot of people make a New Year's resolution to get stronger or to do more cardio or to get
Yep.
fit or to make some sort of bonus improvement in their life.
Absolutely.
And I have
Absolutely.
found with a lot of the posts that I've been doing lately, especially connecting the body to singing, because I'm so, since my injury and rehabbing from that and working out and strength training, I have become so hyper aware of what my body actually does for my voice. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know that there are a lot of people who have been inspired by that, and I'm so grateful and so thrilled that what I have to say is resonating. So a lot of people are writing me that, oh, I'm following your exercises. I'm getting stronger. How do I get stronger this season for my singing? And I wanted to talk to you about that today because that's not always an easy process to start, especially like if you walk into a gym for the first time and you look at all of these machines and you go, I'm not a gym
Yeah.
girl. I don't know what to do, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how at fitness, exercise, strength training helps our singing and sort of the best things that we can do as singing athletes to strengthen breathing mechanism to improve our stamina. So, where would you advise a singer to start when it comes to fitness, cardio, and strength training to improve the voice?
That's a great question. It's a big one as well. So, and so to put this into context, I've been doing this work. I've been a trainer for 21 years, okay, or thereabouts. So I'm going to speak as a human first. I think that thing one is start with something that you can manage. Okay, that
Exactly.
is thing one that I would say is like if you start too ambitiously, if you start with too much intensity, too much volume, if you start with something that like seems unsustainable, you're like, man, I don't know if I can do
Right.
this. Like it's not going to go well,
That's such
and I
great
say that
advice. That's
I
such amazing advice because it is,
yeah.
I feel like people like they go gung ho in like 2 weeks, first 2 weeks of the year, and then it falls off because it's not
Yeah,
sustainable.
somebody said the other day, like I guess last Friday was called like Quitters Friday or
Oh,
something. I
I
didn't
saw
even know that was a
that.
thing.
I
Yeah,
saw that.
I was like, what? But anyway, so that's thing one. No matter what, just make sure that it is sustainable. And then from a physical perspective as well, and I'm going to tie this into singing. Like the majority of the singers that I work with are operatic, which requires a lot of amazing vocal endurance, and musical theater. Both are reliant upon endurance. Okay, so when we think about the physical demands of what you have to do, set aside everything else. Think about the physical demands that you have to do. Fatigue resistance and endurance are very, very high on that list.
Very
Okay,
high.
like extremely high. So we want to build as strong an aerobic system as possible. That's thing one. And thing two, we want to build strong fatigue resistance of the muscles. Okay, and what that means is that when I'm starting somebody, and when we're just starting to train for the first time, like what you're going to be doing is, and again, somebody that hasn't been doing anything, it's going to be a lot of aerobic capacity work.
Mhm.
Okay, thing one for cardio. What that entails is like 30 to 45 minutes of things where either circuit training that's kind of it's moderate in nature, but it's you can keep going while breathing through your nose,
Right.
and that could either be like, okay, we're on an Airdyne or we're on a treadmill or something like that. We're on something that's non-weight bearing because we want our lungs to be the limiting factor, not our muscles.
Right.
And we're breathing through our nose because that's going to set the stage to get our resting heart rate down, to be able to deal with higher level things that we do after that. From a cardiovascular perspective, that's very important. That's going to be thing one.
Hmm.
From a fitness perspective, from a strength training perspective, total body workouts, okay, what I call tempo training, okay, so body weight primarily. I work with a lot of singers that travel the world. They're in hotel rooms and they don't necessarily have a gym. Good news is you don't need a gym for this type of training at all. In fact, I wouldn't want you to be in a gym because it would probably waste your time initially. Okay, and so a good example of tempo training would be something like this. Okay, so I get somebody into a split squat and I say, okay, we're going to go very slow. We're going to count to three on the way down. 1, 2, 3. We're going to come up 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And what that's doing is that's building your body's slow twitch muscle fibers capacity to resist fatigue. So it's kind of like cardio for your muscles in that sense.
Oh, love it.
And we build that up. We might start with like 4 sets of 30 seconds of a circuit of things, and then we go to 5 sets of 30 seconds, and we go to like 45 seconds, and we get to the point where you could do a significant amount of work with body weight and a lower load before we start to add, load and everything else, because it's preparing not only your body, but your connective tissues, your bones, everything to load in a heavier fashion. And and for vocal performance specifically, then it's also going to greatly improve your recoverability on stage.
Yes.
Okay, so that means that your aerobic system is going to be able to flush fluids better, reduce soreness better. So you're going to be able to generally be in better shape to accommodate these higher level things that you're going to see on stage. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a really big deal. And then after that, then we get into things like aerobic threshold work, where we're having you on an airdyne. You're at the top, and I know you know this. You're at the top of your heart rate that you can stay aerobic, which means that I'm like, okay, we're going to go for 4 minutes at a certain wattage that I assign to you, and we're going to rest for 4 minutes. And we play with that to the point where you can produce a lot of power for a long time and stay aerobic. Okay, that's pretty much, that's like the gold standard for me, because most vocal tasks are kind of in that area, especially
Yeah.
as you get more tired.
Yeah, and
And
especially the recovery of the heart rate
yes.
in different sections of an opera. I mean, I just did Tosca, and I love getting to do in the dress rehearsals. I love to wear my watch, my Apple Watch, in the dress rehearsal,
Mhm.
because I like to see how my heart rate changes throughout
Yep.
an act. Act one, my heart rate doesn't really change. I don't really do a whole lot. Everything's kind of like even keel. We're at like 100, 110. Act two, like when things get really heavy with Scarfia, like I'm at like 130, 140. I'm burning fat, like singing Tosca. And I think
100%.
what's important is to be able to like recover quickly. So like if your heart rate does elevate and you feel yourself getting sweaty, your breath is getting a little shallow, that, it doesn't take 5 minutes for your heart rate to come back down again, that you can get that heart rate to come back down in 30 seconds,
Exactly.
to a
Exactly.
level where you can breathe appropriately.
That's
And
a that's a that's a
it's
really
a
big
big
deal. Yeah.
thing for cardio training, I think.
It
And
is.
something that a lot of singers don't really think about, but how do you recover if there's a staircase on stage? If you have to climb a staircase and your heart rate goes up at the top of the staircase, how long does it take for that heart rate to come back down again so you can actually sing?
It is.
Is
And so
important.
cardio advice for singers, like, you say you have a resting heart rate below 60, that would be my prerequisite for this. Like, do these intervals that are like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, for up to 5 minutes, while
Mm-hmm.
breathing through your nose at the highest level of intensity that you can maintain, and then get back to nasal breathing as quickly as you can for whatever interval it is. And over time, you can reduce the interval, or you can the rest interval, or you can increase the length of the work interval. But in either case, what that does is that raises your threshold at which your body goes anaerobic, which means that you can't breathe with air anymore. You can't utilize air. You have to kind of dip into other things. And the cool thing about this is, the higher that threshold, your body has a threshold. Your body has this thing called the central governor mechanism, which means that it's going to prioritize breathing above everything
Above
else, because
everything.
that is your survival right
Yeah.
there, including singing, any other test. So when you go beyond a certain level of intensity enough, your body trips this wire that says, I've got to lower the output of the rest of the body to bring down its efficient, or to bring down its output to make it safe again. So that goes for singing, that goes for artistic expression in performance, things of this nature. So if we can raise up that threshold way further than it starts, then you're not going to do that. And inevitably, when you're in a performance, it becomes more anaerobic, more anaerobic, more anaerobic. So the higher that threshold is, you don't breach it until the very end of the performance, or at all. So then your recovery becomes that much easier for the next show.
Easier.
So that's
Yeah.
that's a big
And you
consideration.
recover more quickly between acts, and you go out feeling
100%.
refreshed and ready
Yeah,
to take on the next section.
absolutely.
If we're talking on the opposite side of that, so we're talking a lot about cardio, let's talk a little bit about strength training and how strength training can actually help and aid in our singing. Because I mean, even if it's with bands, even if it's, dumbbell work, it doesn't have to be like, we don't need to go in the gym and do big squats with the bar and all the things.
No,
But even band work, or light dumbbells or medium weight dumbbells, how does strength training help us with not only that aerobic side of things, but to strengthen our breathing mechanism? Because a lot of the exercises that that you would do in an upper body workout are exercises that will aid in the breath support system of an
yeah,
operatic singer.
100%. And whereas I think about cardio as like setting the stage for the whole system's ability to deal with stress, I think about strength training as almost like tuning the voice and the support to what your repertoire is. Okay. And what I mean by that is, like, okay, say I'm working with an operatic singer whose rep is like very long, like long phrases, requires a lot of vocal endurance, that type of thing. Okay, we can do things like where we focus on inhaling at the top and then sinking a long rep with an exhale.
Amazing.
Okay, because the body is producing carbon dioxide and trying to push air out, and at the same time we have to learn to manage that airflow as we're moving in a similar fashion to the way that a singer would be managing airflow as you sing,
Yeah.
right? So we're training our body's ability to do that in real time. So
Yeah.
we can use the tempo, the rate, and the pace of strength training to do the same thing. So like, and it doesn't have to be like super complicated exercises.
No,
Like,
can be really simple. Can be with
yeah,
hands, can be light.
it could be anything, and it's basic, and it's not about the exercise, it's about how you do the exercise, right? So take somebody that needs to like belt versus somebody that needs a long phrase. Like if I have somebody that needs to, belting is like you've got to compress much more quickly, you've got to get air out faster, and so for that person, putting a barbell on their back, or using a heavier load, doing a trap bar deadlift, that sort of thing, where we're here, makes way more sense. And so when I'm working with a commercial singer, that's their rep. A lot more of that is going to be in their program because they need that. Okay.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's so
Right.
interesting.
And I've even had like tenors that I work with that say like, wow, like when I put on like 5-10 pounds of muscle, I feel that extra support in my body that helps to kind of regulate my voice. Whereas when I lose weight, I feel like I lose that to some degree. So
I feel exactly the same way. I
yeah,
feel exactly the same way. It's
yeah,
just
it's really
learning
interesting.
how to use that. It's recognizing that extra muscle support and learning how to use it without creating tension, which
That's exactly
sort
right.
of leads me into my next question. What are what are some of the things that we kind of mistake in strength training that actually can be a detriment to our voice, and how do we sort of avoid those pitfalls so that the strength training can actually help us with our
100%.
singing?
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is being in the middle. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like the number one thing that I see with like HIIT workouts, and I see with a lot of strength training workouts and things like this that people are doing, it's like it's not intense enough to really elicit an intensity adaptation, and it's not low level enough to elicit an endurance adaptation. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And the reason that that's not good is because it's kind of like this without oxygen thing where somebody's sort of doing this, and it's actually making them less aerobic. So it's taking away from their aerobic system, but it's not giving us anything back as far as how much power we can produce. So really, it's kind of pushing us, and it's kind of this no man's land that's push. And that would be like doing things at 80% for 10 reps, everything. Like I think one of the things that we see a lot, not just in with singers, but with all athletes, is like bodybuilding is rife everywhere. Everybody, wants to, make their muscles bigger or toned or whatever it may be. When in reality, that is, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, you have to think about the way that we utilize implements as well. So if I'm working with a singer if I'm working with any singer that's, in a show, what I'm not going to do for the most part is put a barbell in their back, have them bench press, things that are extremely compressive, because that's going to compress their thorax, and that's going to take air away. That's going to actually make their voice worse. Okay, what I would want to do in that situation is I would want to do unilateral dumbbell pressing. I would want to do split squats versus squats, things like that, because there's still some place to expand. One side may be compressing, but the other side is expanding and turning. And so and that's not to say that we would never use like a barbell or we would bench press, but I would want to do it in their off season or far away from when they're performing, because then we have time to build more muscle and more aggressively go after that. Whereas if you're working out and it's, you're in season and you're performing, you're an opera singer, musical theater singer, then, we're probably doing more single leg stuff. We're probably doing more alternating stuff. We might use a barbell for like one or two movements, but I want to think about it this way. It's like unilateral movement typically restores motion and breathing capacity, whereas bilateral movement typically takes it away.
Totally.
Not always, but as a general rule for exercise selection, that's a big thing. So like think about the ratio of what you have in your program. Like if everything is like bench press, deadlift, chest press, shoulder press, and it's all like this, and
Bilateral. Yeah.
you have nothing like this, then it's like squeezing your thorax and your pelvis like a pancake a lot.
Ugh.
Whereas I might do like, typical workout for a singer in training. Okay, trap bar deadlift. Then we're going to go do some split squats, some single arm presses, some step ups, single leg RDLs, things like that. Because again, that's gonna, it's kind of training the body like a pump. One side expands, one side
And that
compresses.
makes
So
total
again,
sense.
so we get the benefit of, the strength training. I might go heavier in the bilateral lift, and
That
then I'm
makes
using
total
the
sense.
accessory lift to kind of restore and maintain the capacities that might take away, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So
that's absolutely, that makes complete sense. And like,
it's a
I
balancing.
never would have thought about that. That's amazing info.
Yeah,
Amazing info.
yeah, yeah.
The other thing that I notice, especially like in the gym, is, you're, in order to build muscle fiber, you're going for fatigue, right? You're
Yep.
going for fatigue in the muscle. However, I see like people going like, "Huh?" and like grabbing in the neck in
Mhm.
order to lift, basically.
Of
And
course, yeah,
that's something that will definitely affect your larynx and the muscles around
100%.
your larynx. So do you recommend in that case, because nobody, we don't want any singers grabbing in the neck, do you recommend in that case weight down, like go with a lighter weight, higher set of rep kind of situation, like especially when you're in season to get a fatigue with higher reps? Or do you recommend just having someone with you to watch your form and keep you out of your neck? Like what's
Yeah,
your
it's a good question. It's a good question. And there's this concept in fitness called reps in reserve, okay, which basically means like if I say to you, I want you to do 8 reps, okay, and I want you to leave 3 in reserve. That means like you're like, okay, like I could have done 3 more,
mm,
right? We can do a high volume of that because you're not going to failure. And as a result of that, it's not necessarily a compressive activity as much as it would be if you were going to like physical failure in every set. I think that's an error that a lot of
yeah,
people make is like they want to push everything to its end. They think everything has to be progressive, and that's not the case at all. Like I use with my clients, I use what's called RIR. When I give somebody like a 1 RIR, that means that like you finish with like 1 left maybe, which is hard, and that is something where, especially with a singer that's in season, we might do that for 1 exercise,
right.
whereas everything else is like 3 or above, because that, and it really, the research shows like it could be, you can hypertrophy muscle anywhere from 1 to 30 reps. Like,
Yeah.
there, and so, I could do really high rep and I could go to failure and it would be the same basic result as if I did 2 reps, in terms of, what it ultimately does to my muscular system in my body
Yeah.
as far as, compressing. So what I would say is pick 1 exercise that you want to focus on that day. In the gym, we call that a main lift, and go to failure. Like do 3 sets. Go to the point where you're progressing each week, and then the rest of your workout, just do things that are, that you have a few reps left. That
Yeah.
you're working on those areas of the body, but you're not going to failure. That's a really big deal. I think failure is the primary factor, versus either load or volume more so. I mean, you'll hit a
Gotcha.
point where you recognize like, oh yeah,
I've
I'm tired, but
gone too
physically,
far.
yeah, I've gone too far, and you'll feel it
Yeah.
the next day. But the point is, if you stay away from failure, chances are you could probably do a pretty high level of volume or load, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You just leave that little bit left in the tank to recover
Makes
afterwards, and to keep
total
air
sense.
in some degree.
That
Yeah.
makes total
So that's what I say.
sense. So let's bust a couple of myths because I did get a question about this as well. But this was also something that I had planned to talk about. So I have been obviously putting up a lot of videos about strength training for singing
Mhm.
and how, as my body has gotten smaller, I have had to rely more on the muscles of my thorax and my back and the intercostals and the obliques and things like that. And I put up a video on Facebook and Instagram called I live for this, I lift for this." And it's a
Nice.
very large section of Act Two of Tosca. And I live for these 2 pages, but also I have to lift for them because they're so big and so loud that I can't support that dramatic of a sound over the orchestra. So I got a couple of really strange and not so nice comments. that I wanted to tell you about because I would really love for you to just bust these myths. The
Let's
first
go.
comment, which I thought was a little bit funny, was you don't need to lift weights. You need to strengthen your overtones. And went into a diatribe about what overtone series would do me good to get over the orchestra. To which I replied, Sir, how do you think that we create an overtone series? It's based on vocal technique, and the foundation of that is your body and your breath. But the second thing that I got was he wasn't very nice. And he said, how dare you be so pompous as to think you know better than the golden age of singers, none of whom ever spoke about strength training for singing. And if you lift too many weights, you're going to destroy your voice. And how dare you teach young singers to do this? So I would love to bust that myth. And, maybe Pavarotti didn't lift any weights, and that's fine. But how would you react to the people who say strength training for singing is a no?
I would say they're like living the 18th century. I think that like we know a lot more now than we did then. Like for
Yeah,
example, we know bloodletting is not a good thing. Like we know that antibiotics exist now. We have MRIs, and we can get a little bit more specific with the medical interventions that we make. And I think that it's kind of the same thing. Like yoga is different today than it was 3,000 years ago.
absolutely.
We know different. We've updated our knowledge of the body. So so that's thing one. And on the other hand, thing two, and I've heard this a lot from teachers. They say, they tell their singers, like, don't work out, it's bad for your voice. And all of that is based upon empirical observation, right? Like they've seen a singer get worse without context, right? Certainly, if I took a singer into the gym and I said, hey, listen, we're going to squat, we're going to bench press, we're going to deadlift every day the same way for a couple weeks, it would make their voice worse. There's no doubt about that. So training can definitely make you worse, but it's an incredible tool to make your entire body function more efficiently, to be more powerful. You can increase your range with strength training. You can increase your endurance with strength training. And if you look at this, if you do a comparison between singers that have fitness and live that as a lifestyle versus the ones that do not, like even the singers of like my childhood crush Mariah Carey or somebody like that, or like some of these singers from the last generation versus your Carrie Underwoods and things like that. And I'm using commercial singers, but there's no
No,
comparison. The vocal
absolutely not.
longevity, the and I think we could debate the vocal aspects of it, but just from an overall longevity standpoint, just from an efficiency standpoint, just from the capacity of your support to produce power, endurance, strength to support your airway without ever talking about it affecting your voice, you cannot deny
No.
that, and you really can't argue it either because but it really just depends on what you do. And that's why with a singer, we have to be very specific. We have to look at what their week entails. We have to look at what their season entails. We have to say, we're gonna use this period of time to train for this repertoire. We're gonna use this period of time to recover, and we're going to use this period of time to build capacity in a way that's going to help you to support your higher register or whatever it may be. When it's planned and when it's scheduled and when it's done in a logical fashion, there can be nothing more powerful than strength and conditioning for singers, I think, as both a recovery strategy as well as just a strategy to give you, because if you think about it, and I deal with a lot of singers that are technically incredibly proficient, that all of their lives are professional singers. They're at the top of their game, but they're beginners in the gym.
Yeah,
They've
exactly.
never, and you think about, just from that perspective, if you have this whole other lane of physical capacity, of power, of endurance that you've never accessed before, like you've got more to your voice than you realize, because you've got this whole well of stuff that you can access to supercharge what you're doing already, and
I just want to give you a big preach on that because
yeah,
that was such great information. I have like a small tear in my eye for that answer, I have to tell you, because I
yeah,
believe the same thing and I feel the same thing. Like I've never felt so strong and confident in my singing as when I have been like doing like bent over rows.
Yeah,
Like love a bent over row, you know, or a
yeah,
chest press
absolutely.
for that matter. Like your posture feels different. Your
Yeah,
confidence feels
you
different.
feel more
You feel
powerful.
more
Yeah, absolutely.
open. You feel like
Yeah,
you can get a deeper, more open breath because your body is holding you and able to hold you in the right alignment, even as
definitely.
simple as your posture.
Right.
Thank you. That was such an
Oh
amazing
yeah.
answer. I
Listen, I
appreciate
could go
that
on
so
for
much.
hours. Yes.
So, the gym can be intimidating.
Right.
How do we start? Like, let's say that, you know, we want to go into the gym. We don't have a program, but we want to start somewhere. Where do we start? Do we start on dumbbells? Do we look at machines? Do we start on the bike? Do we look at the treadmill? Where would you advise? This is my first day going to the gym. I know nothing. Where would I go first?
Okay, so the scenario is you're going into the gym for the first time and you're just
I'm a
starting. Okay.
singer. I want to improve my stamina. I want to improve my cardiovascular ability, and I want to do a bit of strength training to make my singing stronger, and also align my body, improve my posture. Those are my goals. And I've never gone into the gym before. I've never lifted weights before. Where's the starting point? Like, is it a half
Great
hour? Is
question.
it, you know, what's an attainable, what's a doable schedule for me when I walk into that gym? What's a doable routine, I mean, when I walk
You
into
know,
the gym?
I think that and I've made the mistake as a trainer many times of making somebody so sore that they question coming back. You know, I mean,
Yes, of
that's like I
course.
think we've all done
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
right? So you don't want that.
mhm.
So I think that okay. So if I'm working with a singer, and let's say you're like, I'm going to go to the gym like 5 days a week. Let's just say, you know, and you're going in. It's like day one. I would do cardio day one. It's the easiest thing to do. I would just get on an elliptical. I would go for 30 minutes. I'd breathe through your nose, get in, get out. It's very certain what you do. There's no ambiguity to it at all. You can get in and you can be done. After that, you know, the next day, I would start with isometric movements myself. I would do like, you know, and I would make it total body. So, and it's as simple as push, pull, legs, core. You know, I would do, you know, like something simple like wall sits, you know, push up, hold, maybe some bent over rows, as you say, and then a side plank, like something like that. Like it's something that is doable. Those things are accessible in the gym. You're not gonna, you know, you don't have to utilize heavy weights, and it's super simple to do. And also, and I think this is the most important thing, it's reproducible when you're not in the gym. You know,
Yes.
when it comes to starting a fitness program, variety is awesome, but the main thing is getting really good at the basic stuff for a long period of time first, because your body becomes more familiar with those movements, and we can load those movements and make them more intense. So you're never going to replace a squat. You're never going to replace a step up. You're never going to replace a lunge. You're never
Yeah,
going to replace a push up. You're never going to replace a dumbbell press. You're never going to replace a row. Like
absolutely.
in that family of exercises, if you can do those things, you can pretty much do them on the road as well for the most part in some variety. And the more you do them, if you do them every day, that's why somebody can go from like doing one push up to like 50 push ups in a month. It's just because you practice the skill over
Every
and
day.
over again. Your
Mm-hmm.
body becomes more efficient at it, and you gain confidence in it. And then you can really push it hard, you know? And that's why I wouldn't do, as a trainer, I would not do a high variety of things with a new client. And I don't, because it might be cool and it might make you like, oh yeah, what's next? But what you won't be doing is getting enough volume in any particular thing to be able to make it more intense. And
Yeah.
that ultimately is what we want. So
Okay.
I would do that. Does
Start
that make
slow,
sense?
start light, do things that you can do, and build from there as you
Pick a
go.
routine, pick a routine where you pick a day one and a day two. Do that for 4 weeks. Do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing for 4 weeks, like literally do the same thing for 4 weeks. Add a little bit of volume, but make it routine enough that it becomes part of your schedule and part of your routine. Once you do that, you will learn enough about body positioning, how you perform those particular things, that you could start to branch out into other things. You'll have built strength there. You have confidence that you have a routine that you can go back to if you need to, and you have that certainty. So if you're
Awesome.
not working with a plan or with a trainer, you've got to create that certainty
For
for
yourself.
yourself. So
Exactly.
that's by going with things that are known and that you understand and that you can repeat. So that's what I would say. Yeah,
Okay, so a couple of like quick boom, boom, boom questions
sure.
for a singer for a day, for a week, a day. How many days of cardio and how long would you do to aid a singer in cardiovascular stamina and breath and breathing? How many, like, what's your, like, you need to do cardio 4 days a week, 5 days a week? How long? What's the minimum? What's the max?
So the max, if you're talking lower level cardio, I mean, you could do like 5 days a week. You know, you can do 5 or 6 days a week. If you're just doing like long duration, like 30 minutes on an elliptical or something like that. If we're
Exactly.
talking if we're talking about higher threshold things like so if something requires heart rate recovery, okay, then we're talking maybe 2 days a week. Okay,
Okay.
so like if I'm like for most of my singers work out between 3 and 5 days a week. Okay, and if I'm programming conditioning for them. I'm going to have a hard cardio day and an easy cardio day, and I'm going to alternate those. I'm going to have probably like Monday, Friday, say we do threshold, or maybe Monday we do threshold work, which is more aerobic in nature, and then Friday we do what is called alactic work, right? Just have them sprint as hard as they can on the airdyne for 10 seconds, and then they're working on heart rate recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in between that, I would probably put like a more aerobic day, like we're on an elliptical for like 30 to 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Think about think about the harder cardio is going to elicit adaptations that raise the ceiling. Okay, so you're going to be able to lower your heart rate more. You're going to be able to to kind of ramp up more.
So
Whereas
baseline 3 days. Baseline
yeah,
3 days. If we're going minimum to improve our singing
three
for this
days,
season, baseline 3 days.
3 days,
Awesome.
hard, easy, hard.
Hard,
I would
easy,
do it
hard.
that way.
Love that.
Yep.
When you start adding strength training, what comes first? Does cardio come first or does strength come first? Do you do it on the same days or are we alternating days?
All depends. But so if we had let's just say we have a singer that has like 3 days a week because that's common for the people that I work with. So they got 3 days a week. You know, if they can throw in some other things, awesome. We would have to double up. Okay, so
Right.
we would do probably if I have like a 4 or 5 day a week, then we could start to separate them in terms of importance. There's been research that shows that a lot of strength training will not necessarily negatively affect cardio, whereas cardio prior to strength training will potentially negatively affect strength training. So I would do cardio after just for that reason alone. But again, if I'm working with somebody that they need a cardiovascular adaptation, we're going to do that first. So I would say 3 days, strength training first, cardio second, in the same pattern, easy, hard, easy, hard.
Okay.
Okay, something like that. So
Awesome.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then like let's say there's someone who you have who does 4 days.
Mhm.
Would you do it the same way and have strength training on the cardio days or would you put like one strength training day without the cardio and one only cardio day?
So depending on our focus, I would probably have the additional day as like a focus day, which means that let's say we're trying to raise somebody's threshold, somebody's aerobic threshold or something like that. Like I'm going to give them cardio independently on that day because number
Okay.
one, I can do more, and number two, they have more time to recover. So
Okay.
that's what I do. So I'd probably put like if I had a situation like that, I would probably put like a cardiovascular focus on that day and then exercises like arms and abs like that don't necessarily compete with adaptation, like they're low level enough that I'm not worried about having to tax my resources to recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
So just so we threw in some variety there, I do like arms, abs, that type of thing. I'd throw
Okay.
that in as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So let's say I'm in a normal day. I'm gonna practice for 90 minutes to 2 hours in my day today. How far in advance of that vocal work should the workout happen? Because I know from my own experience that if I ride that Peloton and I like smash it, I'm a little tired
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a little bit. Like I've got a little, like, the air has dried out the cords just a little bit and I'm a little tired and I need some time to recover before I go into a voice lesson or a couple of hours of practicing or something like that. How long do you feel we should have in between like our body work and our vocal work for the day, for a normal day, just for a day
So
where you're
it's a
in
great
the practice
question.
schedule?
No, it's a great question. I can answer that two ways. I mean, ideally, if we're just talking about recovery, the ideal scenario is you would have, 6 to 8 hours, ideally, ideally. But I will say this, you can use short workouts to prime yourself for singing. Okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I had a singer at Glimmerglass this summer that was performing outside in in just in clothes and just it was really hot outside. It affects aerobic endurance and that type of thing. And so for her, what we would do is like literally, 30 to 45 minutes before the gym, we would go, or before her performance, we would go. I would have her go to the gym. She would knock out 2 threshold intervals of like 4 on, 4 off, where it would just open her up as much as she
Totally.
possibly could. And she, and she did great. She said and she did it, and it's crazy because she would have like, a couple shows a week. She would do them before every show. So she was, if you can micro dose it, you can actually, it will actually improve your
I
performance.
love that.
Whereas if you have something that's a little bit more staccato in nature, or something that requires more vocal agility or something, you could do sprints. You can even lift heavy weights in a very small measure, or you could do things where, we're doing things like pogos, where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm just working on just getting my system to ramp
To
up
move
as
and get
quickly
the air and the
as
blood
quickly
moving,
as
the air
possible.
moving. Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we're just kind of tuning the instrument to the task.
yeah.
So, I might have a performer. In fact, with most of my performers, before a show, I'll have them do some sort of like either a longer duration plyo or a really short, intense plyo based upon what their vocal rep is going to be. So,
Totally.
ideally 6 to 8 hours, but you can also do it right beforehand in a very small dose to potentiate for training.
I don't
So,
know if you
yeah.
know the singer Luca Pizzaroni, but I did a concert with him once where he was jumping rope before we went on stage. And I
There you
was
go.
like, dude,
Yeah,
you are awesome. Yeah, I mean, and he like was
yeah,
talking while jumping rope. I was like, this is the most incredible thing I have ever seen.
yeah. No, it's
um,
incredible. It's
it's
it's amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
So our time's going to run out here, but I want to take some questions. And before I do that, because we have a lot of people on right now, I want to make the very exciting announcement that the musical athlete is going to be at Aria Bootcamp this summer. Woo! I'm so
Excited. We're
excited.
teaming up again. That's right.
There, Chris is going to be a big part of Aria Bootcamp. He's going to be there for the whole 2 weeks. We're going to get all of this information firsthand. You're going to get um, personal sessions with him. We're going to have tons of classes and seminars, and it's just going to be such a huge, huge addition to Aria Bootcamp. So I'm so thrilled to have you guys with us
So
this
it's going to be
summer.
amazing. We're super excited. Yeah,
So
it's
let
going
me
to be
ask
great.
you a couple of questions. I
Great.
have a couple of questions from Instagram and a couple of questions from Facebook. Um, there's been a couple of questions. I saw one actually on this chat, and then I
I've
have
seen a couple as
another
well.
one about breath and exercises for breath. So Pamelina Obinova asks, what exercises do you recommend for the core to aid support or breathing low? And also Miki 410 asks, how to balance building core strength and maintaining abdominal flexibility for proper breath control. So I feel like those two questions kind of go together to have to get some ideas on core exercises that help us but don't lock us, basically.
They do. Okay, so I'm going to give you two perspectives on core training. So we talk a lot about when I think about core training, really what we're doing is training the dynamic control of the ribs. Okay, it's a really big deal. So when we breathe in, our ribs are going to
Mm.
go up and out. When we exhale, they're going to go down and in. Okay, if you're like me, if you're somebody like me, you've got a rib flare. So my ribs flare up and out. So what that means is that I compress from the back. So I've got a lot. I don't necessarily have as much muscular activity going on as I would want to knit my ribs in. And you see people that get over inhaled. It's like you get all this air in, so it's hard to exhale out. Whereas you have other people that sort of had more of a forward head posture, and they've got this like gripping of their abs where they're kind of like
With
this, and they drop their
the
sternum.
iPhone shoulders.
That's right.
Yes.
Very, very difficult to get air in here, so they get a ton of abdominal tension. So, and they have a harder time breathing in. So it's kind of like two ends of the spectrum. We've got over inhaled people and we've got over exhaled people. And
Mm-hmm.
so the way that we train the core is going to be based a lot upon that. Okay. So like if I've got somebody like me that's got a rib flare, like I want more core. I want external oblique activity because the external obliques, these are the external obliques. And what they do is they close my ribs down. Okay. They keep me from this excess bucket handle expansion that goes out. So when I'm training somebody initially, I'm getting them to feel these as they breathe. And we breathe in, we keep abdominal tension here because that's going to keep me from overexpanding here, so I can open up, so I can do that. I can expand anterior to posterior, and then we're exhaling, dropping the ribs and getting things out. Okay, so for that type of person with a rib flare, things I like are like side planks are awesome. Dead bugs for that are awesome. You know, crawling or yeah, plank variations are awesome. The big thing for that, and it's based upon strategy, right? When you're for that type of a rib cage, you want long, hard exhales. So I'm not thinking about doing reps. I'm not thinking about like how long can I hold this plank. I'm thinking about how long can I breathe long, and I'm feeling my rib drop in. Okay, you do that. That's going to give you a flatter stomach. It's going to give you that breath control that you're looking for, and it's going to build your core in a functional way. Okay, dead bugs are awesome. Okay, now let's compare that.
Bug over here.
But let's compare that to somebody that's like this. Okay, and this might be somebody that's got a little bit of like a belly that goes out, you know, because of all of the downward pressure. It's like I'm taking your top and I'm squeezing you, so everything is going down and forward. You know, for that person, in terms of abdominal opposition, it would make no sense to train these as much because this is already stiff. This is the thing that it's like I took this and I squeezed all of this, so I pushed all the volume downward. So anybody that has trouble feeling your pelvic floor, or you know, you have issues breathing, oftentimes it's just due to all the downward pressure created by all this tension. So in this case, we've got to create opposition to that. So we want lower abdominal.
Right.
So if I put my finger here, right below my belly button, this is kind of where the transverse abdominis is going to insert this area here, and it kind of wraps around the whole thorax like a hoop to help to create abdominal compression and co-contract with the pelvic floor to oppose what's happening here. So, and basically we're creating muscular tension to knit this in. So what I want then is when I'm working with this person, I'm going to have them put one hand here and one hand here, and I'm going to find tension here without finding tension here, and that's at a very low level. Like that's at like 30% contraction. If I just squeezed everything, then all my abs turn on. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want this to be relaxed, and I want these to turn on. So I can still do dead bugs. I can still do all of these exercises, but typically I'm going to have to start them at a much lower level because the more tension I create, the more I bear down, which in that situation is not what we want.
Yeah,
so
and we find a lot of singers that like lock that solar plexus, lock the ribs, you know, that kind of a thing.
Right.
Chris,
so what
if people want to ask you more specific questions, or if they want to have a session with you to kind of get an analysis, to train with you, to get a workout routine from you, how can they contact you, and where can they go to find information on your programs and what you offer?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, the easiest way to do it, follow the musical athlete like me, and just send us a DM. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. We have two programs that we offer right now. We have a musical athlete fitness program, which is basically a program that's created for our singers where I coach you along. You know, you sign up for that. You know, it's a follow along. We have an app where we create all of your exercises. You and I message back and forth. We can do sessions if you need it. We also have this thing called the Musical Athlete Recovery Program, in which I have a lot of people that come to me with like support things, or have MTD, or whatever it may be, postural maladaptation, things like this. And this program is a daily 5 to 10 minute warm up that you do to cultivate your support and to optimize the way that you breathe and move. Okay, it's something that it's something that is progressive over a long period of time, and it kind of builds on all these concepts that we talk about. So
I love that. That's fantastic. What an incredible tool to have, and to have everything in an app for you is amazing. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Chris, so much for all of this amazing information. I feel like I just went to church. I feel like I just went to school. Like, it was so fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to post this for everyone to watch back in just a minute. And you can save it and watch it back again later, because all of this information was just so incredible. And for more specific information, of course, follow the musical athlete. Their posts are amazing. Dina says pass the plate because we all just went to church. I love
I
it.
love it.
Thank you again
Thank you
so
guys.
much for being with us. This was so incredible, and we will have more information for you. Thrilled to have you at Aria Bootcamp this summer.
I'm thrilled
Like,
to be here.
can't wait.
I'm super
And you guys
excited.
I will be announcing Aria Bootcamp information very, very soon. So watch out for that so you can get to work with Chris in person.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
everybody.
much. This was awesome. Appreciate you.
Appreciate
Have a
you too,
wonderful
Jen.
day,
Thank you.
everyone. Enjoy the information, enjoy the exercises. And yes, Amanda Lynn Perzik, exercise is important for singing. Period. Dot. Exclamation point. All
That's
the
it.
things. It's very important. Even at the cardio level, you don't have to lift a single weight for exercise to help your singing and improve your singing. But if you want to lift weights, like, let's lift weights.
Let's
But
get it.
but thank you guys. Love all of you guys and have a
Thank you,
wonderful day.
everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Have a
Thank you
great day,
guys.
everybody. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.